Did you know that if you want to sell art, the most popular theme is landscapes? Yes, I know this because of the paintings I've sold. I sold a portrait of a sycamore tree. One gentleman wanted a Scottish bridge over a grassy river. And another painting I sold was at an art competition that featured Adirondack chairs nestled in large foliage. Yeah, people want relaxing art on their living room walls. But it's an art in of itself to come up with new and unique greens. So set aside your tubes of green paint. We're going to learn how to mix some primary colors and some complementary colors to come up with some new and unique greens you can use in your landscape paintings. Today I'm going to mix some greens. I normally use 2 greens, but I thought I'd try this. I have 5 colors of blue: Cobalt Turquoise, Cobalt Blue, Ultramarine Blue, Indigo, and Indanthrone Blue. And I'm using 8 yellows: Hansa Yellow Light, Lemon Yellow, Transparent Yellow, Aureolin, Hansa Yellow Medium, Indian Yellow, Yellow Ochre, and Quin Deep Gold. I'm going to start with all the blues and the first yellows, and then when I'm finished with those, I'll go back and do the last 4 yellows. What I'll do is I will leave a little bit of the blue and a little bit of the yellow in each rectangle so you can see what it looks like, and then in the center more or less will be where I'll blend the color, and hopefully we'll see some different variations between the 2 colors. Alright, so Hansa Yellow Light. Cobalt Blue. You can see how the Cobalt Blue is traveling into the yellow. I think I'm going to tilt my board and see if I can't get that yellow to run down. And it's doing it very slowly. Still on Hansa Yellow Light. This time I'm using Ultramarine. Now because the Cobalt migrated the way that it did, I'm going to, I pulled it down a little bit farther than the Cobalt just to see, in case it does that kind of migration, we have a greater area of green. Yep, it's migrating. And I'm going to go back and mess with this a little bit too. Hansa Yellow Light, Indigo. Now we're getting more of a gray. I'm going to put a little more yellow in there. Well, now I'm getting some green kind of color. Yeah, this ultramarine and yellow, I'm just not so sure about that. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to put some yellow in the center here. Moving on to our last blue, and this can be a really intense color. I love to use it in snow scenes to get really, really dark shadows. Now that is making me want to come back with more yellow. Let's do it. Okay, so that's column number 1. Next one is lemon yellow. Same idea. Our paints have dried, and you can see how with the same color blue getting darker and darker yellow, how the colors mix. So these are all very different, but some of them I'm not sure I really care for. So for instance, yellow ochre and this turquoise, it's sort of an interesting color. It doesn't really read as green to me, but maybe next to some more red colors it could look green. Same thing for this with the Quin Deep Gold. With the Cobalt Blue, as you recall, I had a little trouble with the Cobalt Blue getting pretty light, but I'm not sure that matters because what we were looking for is we were looking for green. And that's what happened for the most part. Here, yellow ochre and cobalt blue did not make green. It's some kind of a gray. But I actually went back and fiddled with this a little bit more because I didn't like how it had mixed. So while it was still wet, I went back and mixed it a little bit more, and it's kind of greenish, sort of a warm gray. What's neat is in some of these, it almost looks like a little mini painting. Like this looks like little hills, and this looks like hills and distant trees. Here's the little trees, and so on and so forth. So I would say that the true yellow colors made more successful greens, though not always. I don't like how this transparent yellow and ultramarine blended, and maybe it's because something about those two pigments just didn't want to mix very well together. They seem still, even though they're next to each other, they didn't blend very well. And even indigo was interesting. Again, these look sort of like little mini paintings where this really does have a green look. This is a fairly dark green, almost like a deep sea, or excuse me, an undersea green or shadow green. Even here, this is more of a gray, interestingly. This is green looking, but I'm not that impressed with the yellow ochre and the indigo, though the Quin deep gold, it's kind of more green, but you know, next to this it looks more green, and maybe that's why. Next to this it doesn't, but it could be a green. And yet more subtle greens along the way here, except again for yellow ochre. So maybe it's called yellow ochre because it's not red ochre. That's my guess. But this was pretty when I painted this on and when it was still wet, and it does still actually look green to me. So I think that was a success. So very interesting experiment. This is something you can try with any blues and yellows you have. You don't have to do this many. There are different ways of applying the paint where you might still get even more variations of green or not. So I recommend trying this out when you're trying to figure out how to mix your greens. Now that I have my own chart of unique greens, I can go back to it anytime I need to when I need green in a painting. And I hope you find your chart useful too. To learn other basic watercolor skills, check out this playlist.